All right, greetings. I hope you've enjoyed watching part one and part two, right, of our Project One oral brief, kind of the outline and somewhat the organization of it or how to think about it, splitting up the different things between however many members that you have. Someone's going to handle the introduction. Two people, one person, three people, four people, depending on how many you have, will handle some of the specific areas, right, that are asked for to be addressed in the Project One oral brief. And then someone does the conclusion, right? And then if you have five people, obviously you've got a good guide there. If you have six, make adjustments. If you have four, make adjustments. Three, seven, et cetera, et cetera. And so to kind of pick up from that, this is on the same PowerPoint. Some good presentation practices. The four main ones, and there are more, we're kind of focusing in or kind of want to think about a lot for the rest of the semester. First one being extemporaneous style, and that's just a fancy way of saying not reading verbatim everything that you're going to say. Extemporaneous style just helps us test us a little bit, right? We understand what we're talking about, right? We've spent time with our topic. And I'll get into that in a second. Talk about handing off to the next presenter, which I mentioned briefly in part two. When we introduce the next person, right, we're going to, instead of just one person stop talking and the next person stop talking or jumps from video to video, have a more of a, think of these as transitions. Think about eye contact, right? Now for me, it's a little easier. Sometimes when it can be challenging if I'm teaching, let's say, a synchronous class and everyone's down here on the screen, my eyes can drift down here and I'm looking at the people. But to actually look at the people on my screen or to look at who's watching this, I'm looking at this little blue dot up here, right? And then try to glance down, where I'm at. Then, of course, our speed and rate of speech. We don't want to be auctioneers, right? We also want to make sure that we're talking clearly. Pauses perhaps in between, especially if we are getting ready to discuss maybe a difficult concept, where we'll make sure that our audience is following along. So I'll go into each one of these briefly. So extemporaneous presentations are ones that are pretty good, pretty well planned out. You've rehearsed some. You can refer to notes and an outline, kind of like I'm referring to the ones that are on the screen here. But the screen is not telling me every single thing that I want to say, and I don't have anything out here that I'm reading from, but I know where I'm heading next, right? Kind of like I'm creating the sentences as I speak. I know that I'm talking about extemporaneous style. When it comes to presentations, what are those main ideas and some of those key points, but I'm speaking to it because I understand my topic and my subject. I planned, rehearsed a little bit before I sat down. And then it helps you come across as clear, maybe a little bit spontaneous, not too overly rehearsed, right? And that's kind of where extemporaneous style a lot of times is one of those weird things you rehearse, not so that you can come across that your rehearsal is so much that you are speaking verbatim or speaking robotically. The rehearsal is so that you don't sound rehearsed. And it's kind of I don't know, it's not really oxymoronic per se, but the rehearsal part is for you to really get to know your topic and your subject so well that you know where you're headed, you know the next point that you're going to make, you know the kinds of things that you want to say about that thing, right? Without necessarily reading verbatim off the PowerPoint. You want to give your audience just enough information so they can follow along with you, but they're paying attention to your voice. And then when you're done, you need to hand it off to the next person, right? After you've spoken extemporaneously. So this is an example. You don't have to follow this verbatim. So presenter one says, next, right? John will discuss X, right? And then John, being the receptor, is going to say, thank you, Mary. All right. And so now we've got that transition, right? We didn't stop and then next person, right? And I've had a lot of groups add to this, right? Not only will they discuss the topics, it's kind of like a continuation of what was coming before, right? And then when the presenter picks up and says, thank you, person name here for that presentation about this, and that then it kind of transitions into what they're talking about. And to add to that, boom, right?